Are we ready for the next session? No? Raffles? Okay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our moderator for the panel discussion. He's my close friend and also a part-time singer, poet, writer, and humorist. Iqbal Khirodawala, or ITK, as he is known in his inner circle, is the founder and managing director of Printline Reproductions based in Navi Mumbai. ITK is also BMPA's honorary secretary and a Print Summit veteran. Iqbal loves to dispel management gyan based on his understanding of ancient Indian scriptures and mythology. His achievements include 2 sons, some business debts, and the ability to have depreciating humor. I am privileged to count on Iqbal as one of my closest friends in the industry, and I've learned a lot from him personally. Iqbal will be introducing his panel and his panelists later on. And at this time, I request you all to help me in welcoming him on stage. Iqbal Khirodawala.
सबसे पहले तो लंच और चाय के बीच का सेशन, उसके बाद स्वामी जी के बाद का सेशन, और उसमें भी स्वामी जी हमारे पेट पे लात मार के गए, बोले जितने भी पैनल डिस्कशन होते हैं वो काफ़ी बोरिंग होते हैं और नेगेटिव होते हैं. तो अभी नाउ इज ऑलरेडी पुट अ बिग बर्डन ऑन माई हेड, सो प्लीज कोऑपरेट विद मी, विल ट्राई एंड मेक इट एज इंटरेस्टिंग एज पॉसिबल. Let's start with what we are doing today. So our session is called Horizontal Growth, Vertical Results. The art of enabling success through delegation. Our industry is undergoing a huge transformation. All of us know that it's not only becoming more dynamic, but it is becoming extremely demanding. Today we are realizing that the customer wants more, he wants it faster, and he wants it cheaper. The problem with our customer is also that apart from wanting everything quicker and cheaper, he also wants us to be where he is. तो अभी हम तो क्या, we are all single unit presses, single unit companies. So we decided to have a panel and get people who have multi-locational companies. We need to understand how these people work. Because एक तो क्या है, being multi-locational, you are in different locations where the whole mindset is different. You have a unit in Mumbai, the whole thought process is different. You have a unit somewhere in the south of India, it's a completely different thing. Completely different client base, completely different level of people that you have. So we said, let's call upon 4 team leaders, industry leaders, who have their units in different locations, and let's see how they manage, how they enable their people, how they delegate and run extremely successful units. So, please help me in welcoming Naresh Kumar Dasari. Naresh is Managing Director at MMDI. He is into super wide format digital printing business since 1999 and currently operates 8 production facilities across Hyderabad, Mumbai, Gurugram, Kolkata, Chennai, Bengaluru, Kochi and Vizag. Just see all over the map. Come Naresh, please. My second guest is Pragnath Lalwani. Pragnath is the co-founder of Shesasai Business Forms. And you'll be surprised that he just now told me during lunch that his company is nearly 110 years old. Let's give him a big hand for this. A dynamic leader and an innovator, his appetite for risk-taking and a love for the unconventional have resulted in path-making innovations. He strongly believes that as a team, one can execute any work in any sector. He's focused on strengthening strategic partnership with customers, increasing customer relevance, and evolving the company's technical vision to complete its business vision. Our third guest is a young man, Akshay Kanoria. Akshay is a UPenn graduate with BSc in Economics and a BA in International Studies. Since then, he has been involved in TCPL Packaging, which is majorly owned by the Kanoria family. He started out at the family business by managing the expansion of TCPL's Guwahati plant, and under his father, TCPL MD Saket Kanoria's guidance, Akshay is presently involved in sales and marketing, corporate strategy and operations with special focus on the sheet-fed offset vertical of the business. And last but not least, we have Manish Sharma. Manish Sharma is a theatre actor, runner and a mountaineer. Is that enough? He is also the co-founder of Printo, India's largest retail print chain. 36 stores in 6 cities, Printo has pioneered a new category in retail as well as the print industry. The Printo Group also owns Canvera, India's largest premium album brand, and Ink Monk, a leading online print provider. Manish is a serial entrepreneur who started one of India's earliest and largest web solution firms in 1996. Since then, he has built an AI product out of California and was running operations of a UK headquarters IT solution firm. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome all our guests and give them a big round of applause. So I was going to give them a couple of minutes each to introduce themselves, but I think I've done their job. So we can get to work. Excuse me. गौर गोपाल स्वामी जी ने तो मेरी थोड़ा सा
वो compete मत करो ना. Use this principle.
That was a nice one. So, I would like to ask you people, you have different locations, you have different customer sets, and the challenges are very different when you are in different locations. So my question is, for all of you, is technology a game changer? And if so, how should a current printer calculate ROI? I think this question I will ask Manish. What do you think? Is technology a game changer?
So yeah, I'll break that into software technology. Let's
Please.
say if that's one piece. And being a software engineer, I don't think so at all. I think it's a, yeah, it depends where you are. You of course need software for basic stuff like your, accounting, billing, basic ERP. Yeah, especially if you're in another place, in another city, if not in the same city. But beyond that, I'm not a big believer that it's game changer. I'm sure everyone out here has spent crores of rupees.
Our major sponsors are KBA.
So from a software angle, no, but I think and also I'm not a big believer in leading with technology. I rather lead with customer understanding first. So it's great for collecting that. So you need to use technology more as a utility. I use big fan of Google Docs. I know Milap here uses lots of that. And just use that to get things moving on. Wherever I've made a big project, I've mostly failed.
Okay. So across your different units, across your different production units, do you think that it's technology which matters more than the infrastructure that you have?
I think it's people, process, and culture that matters more rather than the software. The software is almost hygiene in most of the cases. You have to have integrated billing. If you don't have that, then you can't do that. But I'm talking of basic technologies hygiene, but I won't lead with it. Yes, I would lead more with process and people.
Okay. What about you, Pragyan? You have more than 100 units or 14 units of yours all over India. So what is your opinion on that?
I'll just take a minute to give a little idea about what we are into and then address the question about technology. So we are essentially an organization who offers solutions and services to customers in the BFSI space. So we have about 120 plus customers in the BFSI space whom we cater to. And not a single customer we cater to less than 3 locations. So out of our 12 cities that we are across the country, 8 are Reserve Bank approved security print units where we do security printing. So the USP that we've been able to offer to customers is that essentially you have one touch point, you have one front face, the customer will be north-centric, south-centric, or whatever, and then we implement and execute those solutions at multiple locations. So for us, technology has been a very, very big enabler because there is one uniform data flow that happens to us, and there's a decentralized execution that happens. So I would say for us, from a compliance perspective, from a SLA monitoring perspective, from execution perspective, technology is a very big enabler. We are connected by fiber across the country, and the only way we can monitor quality, monitor the service levels is by having a platform which is monitoring this on a pan-India basis. So I would say for us, technology is the only reason why we are surviving, and customers expect this uniform service levels and uniform product delivery levels, whether it's matching the Pantone color to matching the service levels or matching the MIS that you give him on a pan-India basis. So for us, I would say technology is the only reason we are in business.
Yeah, that's true. I think Mr. Sasha was just speaking during his presentation that technology is even making a big difference to, even if your numbers are smaller, today technology helps you run your machines more efficiently, faster. So obviously technology is going to make a difference in the new machine that we buy. For me, the major question is that if you have units spread different locations, Do you use technology to tie them all up together, or is it individual units are independent and they have their own environment, their own synergies?
Okay, you asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a mix of both. So, obviously, if a particular location is a principal location for a customer, then that location decides the SOP, or that location decides the process which drives that customer's execution. So there are situations where you have uniform processes across the country because you have certain mainline brands where you service them from 6 locations, for instance. There the processes are defined, and then there are south-centric or east-centric customers where there is a local flavor. And I personally believe one thing in this whole decentralized concept, and which we've learned. So we were having our first branch in Chennai way back in 2002, and we opened 12 facilities thereafter. So the last branch we opened was in 2014. So the maturity level of our branches is like between 5 to 12 years old. And what we've also seen is that even though it's the same organization, Seshasai, each location has its own flavor, has its own character, and one can be sadly mistaken to expect that the human resource response or the customer response, because you need to have the regional flavor in terms of language and servicing,
Yeah, that's true.
etc., etc.
That's true.
So I would say in our case it's a mixture of both. There are certain customers where there's a complete central flavor, and there are certain cases where there's a regional flavor to the servicing.
The reason I was asking Pragnath is because they were responsible for the implementation of the UID project by 2015. Was it 2014?
Yeah, so between 2014
Yeah.
and 2018, we did about 45 crore UID Aadhaar letter printing, for the UIDI. And we ran a record of sorts on the Xerox website. That this was the single largest volume done on the planet in a defined time frame using variable data. So that is what we did about.
So that's why they are now currently implementing the Fast Track project. So that's why it's very important for them to tie up the technology across all their 14 units, which is why I was asking him. Naresh, my question to you is that across your 8 or 9 units that you have, and you say they run 24/7, your delegation, your ability to be able to make those people individually handle individual units, how important is it for you to delegate? Because you are into outside your large format digital signages and all that. Again, different customers, different locations. Is it delegated or is it just a hands-on owner-based approach? How does it work?
No, it is 100% completely delegated. I am completely hands-off guy. I don't get into operations at all. We are.
Could you just speak a bit louder? I think.
Yeah, we are a 20+ years old company. And luckily we have a lot of people who have been working for us for more than 15 years. In many key positions. And also, as I've said, I'm not into completely hands-on, on production, because I cannot be hands-on because it's 24/7, all days of the year, it's a very well-oiled system, and, the individual production managers or branch managers can take a call at a local level to get the right output. So, for example, you see any Maruti billboard in this country, it only comes from us, or any Hyundai or any Kia Seltos or whatever you see, all these large billboards. Across the country, we service, one single client, and so the color, the consistency,
there has to be some kind of system that has to be in place everywhere.
And the basic question is the delegation. I cannot be there everywhere, so it is reasonably well delegated.
Okay. What about you, Akshay?
I think you have to maintain a balance.
Okay.
Because in any organization, there's always going to be this push and pull between delegating too much and delegating too little. We see this in our big customers like these MNCs and even some of our big suppliers, that sometimes the pace of work is very slow because they don't trust their people to take the decision. So it's always like, this constant push and pull and tug of war in any organization. So maintaining that balance is very important. So you have to delegate and you have to trust your people, but then you also always have to maintain some follow-up and some verification. Because if you don't do that, then and you're completely hands-off, then I feel that over time the standards may start to slip. And our business is one where the amount of things that can go wrong, like the number of variables you deal with, is enormous. So the kind of effort will always be to standardize and to kind of have a one-size-fits-all policy across the board. But then you also kill the innovation and you kill new ideas and change, which is really what drives the growth. So it's a constant effort, and sometimes you lean too much on one side and sometimes on the other side, and then you regret it.
Now, coming to the next question, your business, like all ours, is totally customer-centric. Except for Pragnath, of course, whose business is, government-centric rather than commercial customer-centric.
No, it is customer centric.
Yeah, of course.
Can't be not customer centric.
So what I was trying to say is that your different units, your units in different locations, how important is it to have a common infrastructure? Because each certain area would require a very different infrastructure. So do you have a common infrastructure everywhere? Are there common systems, or are they extremely customer-centric? Are they based?
Infrastructure meaning in terms of machinery?
Exactly, because you would be in different locations based on where your customer wants to be. So how does that work out? Is it customer-centric, each of your investments?
So the main equipment, I'm going to talk about the offset business
obviously,
first,
yes.
because we have the gravure for the tobacco, and then we have the flexible packaging, so those are separate. But in the offset business, we are more or less, the standard equipment is pretty much similar across the board. But then in each factory, you will have some specialized equipment for some finishing activity, gluing, some value addition, which maybe we'll have in one place, we won't have in the other place, because that market may not support that kind of requirement. So you have things like in pharma printing, you have the braille.
Yes.
So now in one market, you may have a higher requirement for braille cartons, so then you put that in that unit, but then you don't necessarily need to do that in the other unit. So each unit has its own specialty and specialization. And even in the printing machines, over a period of time, you get new generation presses, and then there's like a difference between different factories in the kind of machinery they have. But generally speaking, I would say basic machinery is very similar.
Okay. What about you, Manish? Yours would be, technically every job is different.
Yeah. So, we do a lot of digital printing. We have across the 6 cities. So we standardized on day one on a standard model of a RIP and a standard model of a machine, right? So for example, we use Xerox, and we said mid-range production equipment from Xerox. The first time we bought a Creo was our first shop, and then we said no Creo, we'll go with EFI for whatever reasons, availability, compatibility reasons. So it's a strategy. Every machine needs to be the same, so you can move teams around, and whatever you do. For example, if you run every morning we run a calibration check across the locations, needs to be same standard stuff. So when the results come in, and we do what is known as a QSI, quality standards inspection, it's the same sheet that you're trying to compare. So we chose a standard platform right across.
Your very specialized business of photo albums, the Canvera brand.
Yeah.
You have a similar challenge across all your different units, or is that very localized?
So Canvera is print centrally, and so we use the Indigos to print centrally, and there I don't have a challenge there, but there we have a challenge of calibration with our customers' machines, where we got 40,000 photographers across the country who use our services and send us jobs. So you got to help calibrate those, and that's where we use a lot more technology.
Okay. Pragnath, your business is mostly, say, printing of invoices, the mobile bills and all that. Do you feel that there is some disruption that's going to happen in the next 2, 4, 5 years? Because you have 14 units, there might be some areas where you would still be quite strong. There are some areas where the companies might decide that they no longer want to do that. Or is it something that you already thought of and you're going one step ahead?
So, see, in our business, we actually have 3 different verticals. So one vertical is where we do the data-rated print is what we do. We have a debit card and a credit card manufacturing facility where we produce chip-based cards. And we have an IoT and RFID facility where we actually produce RFID tags. So what we've seen is that the variable data print, which is printing of notices, printing of insurance policies, printing of credit card bills, was obviously going to see the onslaught of digitization. So I was just discussing over lunch with Iqbal, and I was just telling him that 2011 April was our peak. I think between April and May of 2011, we printed about 45 million invoices, which is 45 million envelopes went out from our facilities across the country. Each of them was personalized to each customer. and we knew that this peak is not going to be staying here because what is going to happen is you have email statements coming out, mobile communication is happening. So what we did is we went back to where the communication originated, and that is where we went back to the customer's data center, and we told the customer, can we participate with you in sending out email statements? Can we participate in sending out SMS bitlies or SMSs, or now with business WhatsApp integration, etc. So you'll be surprised that we've been growing about 15-17% year on year, and I think last April we just did under 500,000 statements. So from 45 million statements to reach about 500,000 statements, I think you can't be going worse than
Can't
that.
be lower than that, yes.
We've kind of already seen that disruption happening, and the only way we could beat is by going upstream and going back to where the communication originated. And obviously, the new verticals we started, so we went on to manufacturing, banking cards. We are also now focusing on getting into non-card form factors. So we're working to make the first indigenous payment watch in India, where you have contactless payment using watch. We're working on now having wristbands, which will be functional for your transit and your travel, etc. So
The one that Swamiji showed just now.
I mean, that's a smart watch, but you have a watch which will have MiFi display, which can help you travel in the metro trains, etc. So what we focused on is we thought we have the customers with us and we have the customer data with us. How is it that we can go horizontal across and see to keep ourselves relevant to what is his emerging need, and offer him the same security and the same compliance needs that they have as we go along.
So you can keep one.
Okay. Just keep it here. Okay.
What about me? Are you able to hear me?
Hello. So I think this is what we've done in our little bit to try and stay relevant to the customer and survive this business onslaught and face the disruption that the market is throwing at us.
Now, one question that is something that I would like to ask all four of you, I'll start with Naresh, is that when you have 8 units, 9 units, 10 units, 14 units, isn't it relevant that each one of them is profitable? So, do you experience that all your units are not really doing as well as they should? Does that really matter to you, or is it more important for you to be locally based rather than look at individual profits?
We run 8 production sites. I think 7 of them are profitable and 1 is not profitable. But we keep it there because of strategic reasons, because as I've said, some of our customers expect us to deliver pan-India. And maybe we don't have enough customers in that particular region, but just to make sure that the customer doesn't walk away from us, and our market, like any other print market, because our value addition is so small, because ink on substrate is all we do, and then we don't want the competition to come in,
What region is this? Which is not profitable?
Kolkata.
Kolkata.
Yeah.
So people don't go to Kolkata.
Yeah, so, yeah, but overall, that is helping us to retain the customer base.
So sometimes a strategic decision is only because you need to be close to the customer rather than make it profitable. What about you, Pragnant?
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat. For us as well, each unit has a certain reason. Most of our units started, which were customer-driven, trying to go closer to the customer. And for us, actually, we are a B2B2C service provider. So for us, the customer's presence also matters a lot, because where is the geographic proximity of the customer also decides the relevance of our. So I think I'm with him on the same page here that not all units, to be very honest, can be as profitable. Some units are there for a strategic reason, and you always feel that the next year would be a better year, and you work towards improving there. So I think we also have one Achilles heel location, but rest of the others, so we are at about 14 locations. So one location is a sore point. We're working on it. Yeah.
So like Swamiji said, don't make that unit compete with the others. Let it be on its own. But is it been across the years, or is it that certain years are bad in that particular unit? Yeah, it's like that unit will never be profitable.
So I think every unit typically has a maturity phase. For example, 3 years back, we put a humongous infrastructure at Nagpur, and for the first 1 year, we were just building it up. And this year certainly has become very, very indispensable to our whole infrastructure, because Nagpur, Bombay was like 12-hour journey, and it's a very, very huge facility. So it's almost a 5-acre plat. I mean, for us, 5 acres was big, and almost 1 lakh square feet of operating area, which we started about 2 years ago. And a year back, it was obviously sucking out a lot of investment. but I think it'll start flowing results only in the coming financial year. So and I think we'll stop at that in terms of infrastructure growth now, but every unit has its own phase which you need to go through, and it has its own period when it starts getting viable. Yeah.
What about you, Akshay?
So I think we won't put any investment, because to put a factory in our kind of industry is a very big investment.
That's true.
And it's a big commitment. So we will never put it unless we see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And as far as
Marwadi, that's what Swamiji said, no?
yeah. So like as far as like our return on capital and all is concerned, we do a very basic back of the envelope calculation, and if it doesn't fit that return kind of expectation, then there's no point in making that investment. But that being said, there are always going to be teething problems, and you have to have some patience, and you have to be able to stomach some period of loss. If you're going to expect that I'm going to put a unit tomorrow and then grow the next day and start making money, that's not how it's going to work. And I think secondly, the one very important point which in our industry people are only slowly understanding is there's no point putting a factory or a new capacity and then realizing that I need to get the order, and then going to other people's customers and cutting the price to fill the unit. If you don't have the sort of customer demand or justification, then you just should not put the factory. It's better not to grow than to grow and sort of sacrifice margins and ruin business for everybody.
That's true.
So that's very important. I think like this last 1 or 2 years, we've all sort of started to understand that we need to moderate our expectation also sometimes.
But see, 20 years back, my father told me once, "Ke machine le lo, kaam to aa jata hai." That's the kind that's the kind of logic that used to be there a few years back. But I remember Saket ji, one of our Cardan Forum sessions, he made it very clear when someone asked them, "Ke what can we do to make profits now? Everybody's competing with each other, everybody's killing each other." So he used a one-line statement, "Jab tak capacity बढ़ता रहेगा, तब तक profit होने वाला नहीं है." I mean, there is more capacity than what the orders are. So obviously everybody is going to undercut everybody else. That's absolutely true. And I think that was a golden rule. That's a golden rule that all of us need to understand. So what you're saying is right. I mean, just putting the machine and then waiting for an order and then trying to undercut something is something that's going to kill our industry. Manish, what about you?
So, we're in the retail business, so we can't afford to have a shop not make money. We give it 6 months. So within 6 months, it needs to make money. If it doesn't, we shut it. So today, from 36 stores, I don't think we have any store that makes that doesn't make money. But I would have shut about maybe 15 stores in the last 14 years. So we shut because it's easier for us to shut a store and move the investment. We do that. So we move in give it about 18 months, and you have a clear sign. Earlier, I was stupid, took me 3 years, but now we know that if it doesn't work in 18 months, you don't have a market. So just start moving faster and shut it down. So we are fairly flexible with that.
Now, knowing that please, yes.
Are your stores on rent or are they owned?
Yeah, all on rent. I wouldn't be sitting here wasting time with you guys if they were owned. Yeah. Because they are fairly high street stores, so I don't think I can afford anything out there.
But that reminds me of an anecdote that Ray Kroc, the owner of McDonald's, was giving a session in some American university, and he had students sitting with him. And they were sitting in one of the McDonald's outlet. And he had about 7, 8 MBA students, all, at the end of their graduation, pretty smart. So Ray Kroc asked them a question. They said that, what is McDonald's strength? What is its main product? So someone said, the Mac Burger, and someone said the fish grill and all that. Someone said coffee. He didn't answer anything. They continued their discussion. After about 10, 15 minutes, he asked the same question. What is McDonald's in the business of? Again, someone said maybe it's one of your bigger burgers, and someone said it's maybe the level of service that you give, or some coffee or something. After the third time, when he didn't get the answer, he said, our main business is real estate. McDonald's all over the world owns all the real estate that they operate out of. So they said that for us, making money from burgers is just one part.
I believe in that, yeah.
Yeah.
So 80% of our infrastructure is owned by us.
Exactly. So according to him, that's the way business works. As Swamiji said, maybe the crow needs to change now. So maybe he's the older crow, putting the pebbles and waiting for the water to come up. Maybe Manish is the later
I think
crow.
on that point, it's very important to own a bunch of infrastructure if you can afford it. I could not.
Absolutely.
And I also saw that rental yields are abysmally low, right?
Yeah,
so it's held me in good stead. And if you need flexibility to move from locations, you need to have it on rent.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of business that you're in.
Yeah, I just moved to a different apartment in Bangalore, and I had some problem, and I just have to call the landlord now. Earlier, I had to fix it myself. Yeah, so I see the advantages sometimes of both the sides.
No, so but in spite of all these thoughts that we have, and we are profitable in every unit, etc., do you still feel that there is one mistake that you felt, which if you had not made, you would have been probably a lot bigger? Something that you goofed up, taking a decision, buying an equipment, maybe it's the decision of being on rent. I'm just loudly guessing. Is there something that you feel that had you been able to change that, Printo would have been much bigger? Yeah. Or you feel that you are perfect?
Yeah, there's no one mistake because there are about 20 or 30, right? I can't pick which one. Yeah, so I think I made a series of blunders.
Try and be kind to yourself. Try and find out something that doesn't pain you when you're reminded about it.
Yeah. No, right up front because, I had a model in my mind. I said, this is how it's going to work. And this is how we're going to change printing in India because there's a lot of capacity. Our whole model was we're going to set this professional McDonald's version of printing. You walk in, get it done. Right? And I said, we don't even do design assistance, nothing. You bring in your file, but we guarantee you great quality, quick service. And we just didn't get any business. Luckily in retail, the customer comes and slaps you in the face every day, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And every hour. So if you don't do business for 3 days, you say something's wrong, right? You don't have to wait, you don't have to bid. My previous background was enterprise sales and software, which would take us 6 months to learn if we got it right or wrong. So here we changed. We definitely learned that if you think you know the customer, just don't sit on it. Listen to them, keep changing. So that was one of the bigger mistakes in the beginning, right? I think ongoing, there's a bunch of mistakes. I feel that we don't move fast enough. We don't innovate enough. So we've not been able to replicate the innovation engine inside. Right? So I think it's a long list, buddy.
Incidentally, the slapping business doesn't just happen with retail. We are all part of it. So. What about you, Akshay? I think you're pretty young, just about 5 years in the business, but do you feel certain failures which you feel could have changed, maybe not yours, but the company as a whole, which could have probably put you into a completely different trajectory?
I think my big failures are ahead of me, not behind me still. So I have a long way to go. For me, it's been only 5 years in the business. Yeah. So my father has always been there, and the rest of the company backing has been there, so that if there is any failure, then it's always sort of caught before it can go to the completion stage. So I'd stay away from this question, personally.
It's even better. Talk about your dad's failures. It's easier. I have a long list there.
He's right there. You can ask him after.
I think Akshay's failure is that he's not experienced any failure. So
what to
we'll have to wait for the next Print Summit, I believe, or the 10 years later on. What about you, Pragnath?
Failure as such, I would say there's nothing that's held us back, or that's fingers crossed that there's something that's happened which kind of has been a setback for us. But maybe a misreading of the potential, probably I would say in a couple of last few years, has been this whole story about Transpromo and you being able to sell color with a greater bang for the buck compared to a monochrome selling. So there we had done some investments in color inkjet web press, which is a very sizable investment for that time. And the response of the inkjet press on Indian media was far from what we expected in terms of the color gamut and stuff. So we had to step back and then do a hybrid where we did partial offset and partial inkjet to make do for the equipment efficiency. I thought that would have allowed us to actually open up more markets, because if you had white paper going in and color coming out, you would have actually had much more potential, tapped out from that investment. But that was a little bit of a, learning that, sometimes you need to really go with Indian media and do all your FATs. Just don't get sold out by samples which just want to you. So that was a learning for us. In any way, the equipment is still running today and giving us good returns. But
so it was not really a failure. It was just a small hiccup.
Blip. Yep.
What about you, Naresh?
Yeah, we, making mistakes is a part of our learning process, I guess.
So over a period of last 22 years, like we have bought more than 60 wide format printers from various vendors. And some of them were ahead of the market curve, like for example, we went into corrugated POP way back in 2006.
Oh,
So,
print corrugated sheets direct.
yeah, like
digitally.
what Amit Bhai is just showing, has done a marvelous job on the train. We tried to do something like that way back in 2006 without even realizing that in India we don't have a necessary cardboard to, the base raw material, it itself is missing. So we used to import, this high quality flute board, like BC, flute boards from Australia all the way. And obviously it sunk on its own, so on
So
its
you
own
couldn't
weight.
find a proper board here in India, so you
In
decided
2006
to
it was
import
not, it was not there, So, we have done series of mistakes. It's not only one, we have done a few costly mistakes, but yeah, it's a learning process and we have come stronger out of it, luckily we survived.
Most of about 70% of our units are mom and pop shops. I would call them mom and pop shop because, they're owner managed, owner driven. With units like yours, which are multi-locational, do you feel the need for professionally managed companies? Do you feel that our industry is ready for very highly trained professionals to come and run our organizations? Because in the long run, each company wants to probably grow to a level where the owner is not good enough for them to run the organization on their own. Is there a potential for understanding and accepting that professional management is the way to go? Naresh?
Yeah, I think now, for example, our company, we are having a flat growth. There's no growth, since last 3 years or so. And, as Mr. Somebody was saying, during earlier discussion here, that you have to step back, a while, and put smarter people into business, we tend to get too much emotionally attached to, business, which is also at times, is trouble, we don't want to let go. We don't want to let go people who are not functioning well, it's more of a, how can I ask him to leave, because he's been with me for 20 years, despite he was not performing well. So this is the kind of, dilemmas one would get into in a business like us, because we build it from scratch,
That's the problem with all of us, because we build our businesses from scratch.
Yeah.
We feel that unless someone understands our way of working, it's be difficult to hand that business over to them.
Yeah,
What about you, Pragya?
So I think the answer is a mixture of yes and no. I think the print industry per se, we are a service industry. Yeah? So you like a dentist, you go to him and you continue going to him, and the day he says, my assistant is going to be treating on you, you say, boss, I came here for treatment with you. So what we've done is we've understood there are certain set of key accounts for whom you are the same Sheshishai who was 20 years ago, and the day somebody else goes to meet them, to abhi kya bada ho gaya kya? Boss, time nahi aane ke liye. So typically we've bifurcated accounts where there are certain accounts which are, 3 of the top key accounts are still, I'm the second line. After the first line, I'm the straight line of escalation as an account manager. So there are accounts where if they're so important for you, where you need to really service them personally because there's too much at stake there, and you need to get the vibe and the pulse of the account. So also, we've kind of ourselves broken up into 6 different verticals, and now we're trying to give each vertical a responsibility. So we have a BPO vertical, we have a smart card vertical, the secure print, and then the logistics and the IoT, RFID vertical. So what we're now trying to do is verticals which are completely afresh, which has got no legacy, where there's no customer expectation that he's expecting a phase 2 service. We are trying to bring in energy from within the system or from outside, which can then go and handle that vertical completely. But I would say it'll take time for us to really say honestly that we are ready to be really professionally driven. But nevertheless, the systems are in place because on a given day, across these locations, we actually handle about 400 different processes for customers. So if there is no hierarchy in place and there's no systems in place, then these kind of corporate customers don't last. So, we've got legacies of more than 20 years. So
no, processes and systems are always there, Pragya, but somebody driving it, as long as, the problem is that most of it is driven by us.
Right.
We cannot really extricate ourselves from the ultimate role, that there are, of course, a line of people who might, of course, be doing, because you can't run such a large organization without the systems in place.
Right.
But still, you feel that there is a need for a professional head who is answerable just to you and you not getting involved in day-to-day operations?
What we've done just 2 years back is we've actually created a central monitoring team of cross-functional people. Okay, somebody from technology, somebody from compliance, one guy from operations, and one guy from HR, who are actually sitting in a central war room, so to say, and they are the first point of call for any branch having any problem statement, because our problems are a little complex in nature when it comes to servicing.
Yeah.
And we are trying to evolve and see ourselves whether it will be one single individual who's going to be actually replacing the driving force, or is going to be a kind of a group of people or something. We are still trying to figure that out and see whether in such a complex industry as ours, whether it could be one individual who could be replaced. We are still finding that out.
Still in the process. Manish?
Yeah, I think I'll address it more for the smaller. Is it audible? Yeah. I'll address it more for the smaller units, let's say,
Yes.
right? So when we were small, and for what you call mom and pop shops, right? So we started with one shop, which was pretty much there. I think there's a cost structure problem here, right? So and if we take into account our opportunity cost of capital, we are the heads of the company, and we don't realize that our opportunity cost is pretty high. So we are basically cheap labor for our businesses.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And if we don't understand that, we will not go in and invest other. The only way to get more out of us is to have somebody below who can run it more professionally.
That's
Even if you're a small unit, right? So you have to start small. And I saw a lot of my friends and relatives face those problems, right? They didn't invest in people before. When it's a larger business, it's very clear. You have to do it. There's no point. I think starting off earlier to recognize that, when you say, okay, I'm making 25 lakhs a year and I'm happy, but you know that, at that level, at 45 years, most of your friends are making maybe 40 in a job, right?
That's
and
true.
And you're just, your business is sucking that 15 lakhs out of you, right? So much for our superior skill, right? So that's how I would look at it and say it's critical if you want to get the best out of yourself.
Akshay? Does TCPL run on professionals, or it's still owner managed and you have your excellent team of people who back you up with the performance that are required?
So I think factory-wise, if you see over there, we treat our factory managers more as business heads.
Wonderful.
So it's not that they're restricted to just a narrow operations focus. Like I've been to European factories where you ask questions about the raw materials and about the, why, and then the guy can't answer that because he's only responsible for machine should run on full capacity
Yeah, they're pretty
and
focused
take
on
care of the labor.
their area of specialty, yes.
Yeah, but I don't think that works over here. I think over here, the factory manager, whoever it is, has to be very answerable for the entire profitability of the unit. And people have to kind of take ownership. And the more the ownership the person takes, usually that person tends to be more successful within the organization, is my feeling from last 5 years of observation. But family management and control is still very much required. I don't think we are big enough as a company yet where we can say that we can sit back and sort of leave it to the professionals yet. I think still there's a long, we still have a lot left to contribute.
And what, according to you, will make TCPL big in big words?
I mean,
consider yourself small,
at some
so-
point when it's beyond ability for any of the three of us to sort of,
Yeah. When it's beyond
us.
combined capabilities.
yeah, because
of all
right
three.
now there's my dad, there's my brother, and there's myself.
True.
So there's enough people, it's...
Now, coming back to your being multi-locational, your having customers spread all over India, is there a long-term plan to milk this? To be able to exit it, be good enough, big enough, rich enough, interesting enough for someone to make an offer as in Godfather, Don Corleone says, an offer that you can't refuse. Are you open to that? Does it seem like an unthinkable proposition? Or does it feel that, okay, in the long run, that's what we should be? I think we'll start with the younger guy, because he feels that three of them are still capable enough of running this organization. So short run, long run, mein koi aisa koi dikhta nahi hai khas. But still, what is your idea on this?
My thinking, we've discussed this many times because we see in our industry, not in carton, but especially in the flexibles and in many other sort of related industries and packaging, these MNCs and private equity coming in and buying companies out. And then we also think that, like, okay, can we see that happening with ourselves 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, whenever down the line? And the calculation is always that after you sell the company, what will you do? You know, is this business still interesting? And
you can always start
is
the
it still engaging?
22nd Century Private Limited.
Yeah, but why can't you do that within the company you have?
That's true.
Why can't you build on the strength that you have today and start sort of exploring new verticals with the strength that you have? Because tomorrow, if you're going to sell the company, you're going to be at a absolute sort of raw and you'll be at the beginning stage. Today, after 30 years of effort, we've reached a certain level. So shouldn't we leverage that 30 years of experience and effort and Gyan, I would say, to do something new within what we're already doing?
No, sometimes people are also thinking of this option because beyond the point they cannot grow. You know, they feel that, okay, this is reached it, and now to take it to the next level.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
So probably that's one of the
that's
reasons why.
if that's the industry and that's the kind of area and thing you're in, then
we do
yeah.
have examples.
But I don't think for us that's the case yet.
What about you, Manish?
No, but I would have loved it if somebody bought me, right? I was waiting, and then I said, yeah,
Hint,
kuch
hint,
hua
hint.
nahi. Yeah, nahi, kuch hua nahi. Then I said, maybe there are others like me who are as stupid as I am, so let me see if I can buy them, right? And I thought that on a more serious note, that the industry needs to really consolidate. So we started acquiring other businesses, and especially where there was a meeting of minds with the other entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And all of us are agreeing to capacity. So why don't we start reducing it, right? And taking the first step. I think both the sides need to take a step of somebody needs to be a little more generous, and somebody needs to be, willing to take a cut. So I think our path is just consolidate on this path and just grow in size. We know, all of us know, that you need to have a minimum size to start working. Either you remain really small, one-man shop, and that's good and profitable, or you need to grow large. Right? So, and we realize it's not in our control, any of these acquisitions.
Good. Pragnath?
Yeah, I think for us, we're enjoying what we're doing right now. And I don't think that we need any priority to get driving us even more. So we drive ourselves sufficiently enough. So there's no plan on those lines, yeah. And honestly, we really need to step back and find some time to think about it as well.
Yeah, that's true. Naresh?
No, we are not for sale, and we are looking, we are actually in the process of building up, our company to the next, milestones, wherein we got into related businesses now with the same clients, like, for example, you use the word called milking the client, so now we got into large-scale signage projects. We already set up 6 units for it, in different parts of the country. So we are, there's a lot of potential left, in us, in our company, in our people. So we have never thought of it as of now.
Lovely. So thank you, gentlemen. I think I have about 5 minutes and I'm able to take a couple of questions. But before that, I'll just one question from all of you. Was Swamiji right about this panel being, or was it something that you people felt that it requires a few claps? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Are there questions for any of these 4 gentlemen?
The dumbest thing was marrying, because
That's Bimal Mehta from Vakils,
I would have gone
and he is his
kicked you.
brother-in-law, so the question is disallowed.
Is disallowed. No, so Manish, you have gone the private equity route very early, the VC and private equity route. Would you advocate that for later stage investment as well, rather than going the debt route?
Yeah, so, that's one of my early mistakes I forgot to mention.
Okay.
Yeah, not Bimal. Not Bimal. It's the private equity. So we raised...
Sorry, some people didn't get that, so you'll have to repeat that.
So we raised money from... one of the early mistakes was very early on, second year into the business, we raised money from Sequoia Capital, which is a very well-respected private equity venture capital fund, which is invested in the guys behind Apple, Cisco, a bunch of big brands internationally. In India, they fancied retail, and we raised money. I think it was a big mistake from both Sequoia as well as my side. This is not a business which goes like a hockey stick curve. So, so we had so that was a mistake. And I was lucky to be able to get into a situation to buy them off, right? And but all this takes time. This sucks a lot of energy out. And by the time you bought them out, this was 2011, and then you started growing on your own terms. We were 9 stores, came back to 4, bought them out, and then started going. So yes, that was a poor experience. I don't advocate that in the early stage of most of our businesses, which are not necessarily IP-led. I can claim we built a brand, but it's not really IP-led. But on the later stage, I think if that's your question, that do you want at growth capital at what stage as compared to debt? I think if your cash flows are very, very predictable, there's just no reason to do growth capital, right? You just go for debt. But there is one reason I realize. I see my friends in the US who run, $50, $100 million businesses, which are non-tech. They do take private equity and take some dilution. So they have some money kept aside for themselves, which is, very important. I feel that, none of us entrepreneurs really in general end up making a lot of personal wealth, right? Very few. Some of them are on the stage. I'm not one of them, right? But we just, to make a point that the chances of success of making a lot of money are so low that it's important to start thinking about personal finance as well. And private equity is one route which in the US is very open and allows you to, sell off about 10% of your stock and say, okay, as long as you're running a profitable business. I don't know if that answers your question, Vimal.
Any other question? None other? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for a...
There's
Sorry?
There's one out there, so maybe he wants to.
Hello.
Yes.
My question is for Manish. In your expansion to different cities, what has been your observation about the talent pool available for expansion? So have you usually hired from within the print industry? Have the management been within print, technical? Management has been outside print, technical within print, and how is the talent pool availability? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we don't hire from the print industry, so we don't necessarily, so we train internally, and very few of us are from the print industry. Of course, we've got a few engineers from Manipal, right, who form well. Our CEO is a Hindustan Lever guy so no technical folks as such. I think there's a lot of talent available, a lot of talent coming in out there, but from the hospitality industry. So we have a strong training team, right? I think that's what we focus a lot on. If you want them to be in 36 locations and every quarter we set up a store, you do need to have a strong training team. So I think there's enough talent, right? And there's a lot of talent coming from hinterland. The only trend I see is that a lot of talent is North Indian, right? So I see a lot of North Indian talent in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala. Now we have a lot of presence in Kerala as well, thanks to the photo book business. I don't see a general challenge with talent at our technical level, right? I think it's very trainable.
My screen, in any case, says time's up. Any more questions, or shall we wrap this up now? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Round of applause. And I'm now going to ask Dev Nair Sahab and Kuldeep ji to please come on stage and honor the 5 gentlemen over here. Big round of applause for Manish of Printo. इधर आ जाइए पापा जी, इधर आइए. Akshay Kanoria. Dev Sahab, please help us in honoring Naresh, please, big round of applause. And to Pragnat, please. Thank you, Pragnat. And finally to Iqbal. Iqbal. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Iqbal. Thank you, Dev Saab. And thank you, sir. All right. Just before we break for tea, let's do a quick 2 more rounds of raffle. So if I could have the raffle box here, and I'm going to ask Ashutosh and Saubhagya to please come up on stage. These are again, these are Amazon Echoes. So Ashutosh and Saubhagya, please pull out 2 tickets. Go ahead. And the winner is Prashant Ahire. Prashant Ahire in the audience. Yes, please come quickly. And the second one, Prashant Ahire, please. Come ahead. The second winner is Manish Virdi. Is Manish in the auditorium? Manish Virdi, please come. That's Prashant Ahire. Thank you, Prashant, and thank you, Saubhagya. And now we'll have Ashutosh giving the second prize to Manish Virdi. Round of applause for Manish. Thank you, Manish. And thank you, Ashutosh. Okay, guys, now it's tea coffee time. Please have a look at our sponsor stalls. And please be back in 40 minutes' time. We've got 2 speakers left and a massive entertainment program lined up for you. 40 minutes, please.